Hi, I'm Dan Barker, a former preacher who let go of God.
I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor, and welcome to Freethought Matters. Speaking of letting go of God, we have in studio with us today Julia Sweeney, who wrote a book and made a movie called Letting Go of God.
Julia Sweeney is a comedian, she's an author, she's an actress, she's best known as a cast member on Saturday Night Live, and there's a whole list of things we could say about you, Julie, but welcome to Freethought Radio.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And you were in a lot of movies.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction, the Stuart Little. Yeah, I played Mrs. Keeper.
Okay.
And Coneheads movie. Anyway, all small parts.
Oh, and I saw, what was that movie with the dog?
Beethoven.
Oh, yeah, the Beethoven.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Beethoven 3 and Beethoven 4.
Yeah, those were really fun. So.
Yeah.
And
So-
you're also a playwright.
Yes, well, I've written these monologues, one of which is Letting Go of God, which is how I met you guys.
Well, that's our favorite, of course. We've seen some, in fact, we saw you in on Broadway in you one about adopting
Off-Broadway.
Mulan.
Oh, yeah, off-Broadway.
Off-Broadway?
I have been on Broadway with my first one, God
Okay.
Said Ha. Then I was off-Broadway with In the Family Way and with Letting Go of God.
It wasn't that far off. I mean, it was like, what,
No, it wasn't
4
that
blocks
far.
or
But
something.
I mean, in New York, it's a definite
Oh, you have to,
distinction.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well, so God Said Ha.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, that was when I first started doing monologues. I was a comedian, but I never thought of myself as talking about myself or being like a stand-up. I was more like a sketch comedian. That's what I did on SNL and at the Groundling Theater. And then I left the Saturday Night Live, and my brother was diagnosed with cancer, and I was diagnosed with cancer. And we spent this kind of terrible year both fighting cancer, and my brother died, but I didn't die. And it was just a really difficult, but also funny and poignant year. And I took all that material and made this show called God Said Ha, based on the idea of, when you make plans, God laughs.
So
That
you
was
wrote,
before I didn't believe in God.
so you wrote
Later
a,
I thought God doesn't really laugh at all.
so you wrote a comedy about a tragedy.
Yes. And so
And
then...
it's very funny, and it's also very
Yeah,
poignant.
I mean, I was, because it is, even every tragic situation, there's always funny things. That doesn't mean you're taking it lightheartedly or anything. It's just, I always think when you get cancer, or the situation I was in when my brother had cancer, and I did, it's like you've gone to Mars, like there's all, because you're in the hospitals all the time being treated, and just a lot of crazy stuff happens. And my parents moved in with me, and they were annoying, and there was just like, and everyone, the way they treat you when you have cancer. Anyway, there was a lot of comedic material there.
There was. It's very funny. And it won awards.
Yeah.
And made it into a
did.
movie.
And I did a film of it that was on HBO or whatever. And then I did In the Family Way, which is all about adopting my daughter Mulan, who's now 17 years old. And then I did Letting Go of God, which was all about me sort of looking for God and rejoining the Catholic Church after sort of a traumatic relationship and a kind of a little depression over that, and taking a Bible study class, and then discovering science, and one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was an atheist. And then I really wanted to have a show where I could explain how that went, how I changed my mind. And that's what Letting Go of God is.
Well, who would have thought something that cerebral and philosophical would be so funny? I mean, the way you tell the story about letting go of
Well,
God.
thank you. Well, it was hard. It was a real challenge to do it because I realized the drama all takes place in my head. It's like really about changing your mind about something, which isn't inherently that dramatic.
Yeah, but the stories with your mom and with your brother, telling your brother there's no Santa, and I mean, and having to change your sign because of the birth.
Oh, that's right.
All that stuff in there. It's just
Well, thank
gut
you.
splitting.
And going to the Galapagos.
Right,
and going
that's
around
right.
the world on this kind of journey to find
yes.
yourself.
And I try to get into New Age stuff. I think I might be Buddhist. I explore everything. So I kind of go through all the stages, and then finally I just have to accept that I just don't believe that there is a God in the way that people normally to think of a God. Anyway, I think there's nature.
Well,
I'm
I
a
think-
philosophical naturalist, is what I realized.
I think your play and movie is really the very best primer that you could give to a friend or family member about Freethought.
Oh, thank you.
I mean,
Thanks so much.
because it's also funny. But it's very profound.
Well, I've had my favorite comment that I've got from it is people who say that they became an atheist, but their parents were very upset about it, and they were able to, give them the DVD of my show, and that explained to them in like a non-confrontational way how someone could come to this conclusion and how difficult it is. It's not really taken lightly. It's a serious thing.
But could you just say briefly about your mother? How you dealt with your mother when you became an atheist.
Well, how she learned about it, too.
Well, in some ways, when I look back on it, it was really, I didn't handle it as well as I could have. But I was sort of telling the story here and there. And I had told the story in Washington, D.C. and at some event. And then it was picked up by my hometown paper. And there was a headline in the paper that says, Julia Sweeney, is no longer Catholic and is now an atheist. And that was really horrendous for my family to have in their hometown paper because my father was a big Gonzaga University Jesuit kind of guy who wanted to be a Jesuit, daily communicant Catholic, very Catholic city and family.
In Spokane.
In Spokane, Washington. And on the other hand, they did not really react very well. I made a mistake maybe by not preparing them for this, but I didn't know it was going to be in the paper. I didn't know it would be, who would care that I became an atheist, but I guess they did. Anyway.
What was that line in there where your mom said, Julia, it's okay if you don't want to believe in God, but do you have to be an atheist?
Yeah.
No, she said, it's all right if you're an atheist, but that doesn't mean that you've stopped going to church, right?
Oh, okay.
She didn't care about... It's actually brings up such an interesting thing because now I've had so many years to think about it. It isn't really about belief in God. I don't think any of those people are really about belief in God. I think it's about conformity and culture and ritual and saying that you're part of the group. I don't
Community.
I don't really think of, now that I think about it, all my friends in Spokane, I guess I'm divided on it. But I just think it's much more about saying you're in the in-group than it is about anything else.
In family and culture and tradition and identity, who you are as a person.
Yeah. Anyway, my parents didn't talk to me for about 9 months after that.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though you had Mulan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cutting you off.
Yes.
With the granddaughter.
Right. But then, they came around and I came around. I never really apologized, but then they didn't either. But we just started talking again somehow.
And we'll be back with more Freethought Matters after this.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
I'm Doug Hinahara, and I'm an out-of-the-closet atheist. I consider myself fortunate in that I wasn't raised in an overly religious family, so I was allowed to think for myself. And around the time I was 17, as I was exploring these ideas of religion, I was told by a fundamentalist Christian that my grandmother, who had emigrated from Japan, was destined to eternal damnation because she was a Buddhist. And I couldn't accept that, and it kind of unraveled from there for me. So at this point in my life, I've become very comfortable with the idea that I don't need religion or belief in God to be a moral person and live an ethical life. I'm proud of the fact that I have 2 daughters who have grown up to be wonderful young women, and I'm proud to say also atheist.
For somebody who doesn't know it, you were going around the country performing this play, which is, over 2 hours?
I know, it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. I can't believe I did that.
Huge memory feat.
It was, actually.
And you were actually trying to keep it in your head by doing it periodically.
Well, she did it in Iceland, remember?
Yes, that's right.
That's
No, it was really hard to do it. In fact, when I opened the show, I had to postpone my opening by a few weeks because I just couldn't memorize all of it.
Well, that's amazing.
Right.
But it's had a tremendous impact. But now you're not just about atheism. So what else is going on?
Well, actually, I'm thinking about developing a new comedy hour about my time, because then I got married. I married someone who lived in Chicago or just outside Chicago. So I moved there with Mulan. He adopted Mulan. So we became a family. And now in a year, Mulan's going off to college. So I moved to this suburb of Chicago called Wilmette that I really like, but I don't feel like is the right where I want to live forever. And I kept my house in Los Angeles. So in a year, we're going to move back to LA when Mulan goes to college.
La La Land.
To La La Land. And I wanted to do just sort of a funny hour, an observational hour about my experiences, my thoughts about living in Chicago and then LA and like finishing up raising, like the hands-on part of raising a kid. And so that's what I'm thinking about doing.
You're thinking about another one-woman show?
Well, I'm thinking of it more like stand-up, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, like, I never did actual stand-up. On the other hand, I did get a lot of laughs in Letting Go of God, so I think I could.
You were working on, where you visited all these churches?
Yes. Actually, I was thinking I want to work on some material from that. In fact, I was thinking of visiting those churches again. And then in the last year, I joined a Unitarian church and left a Unitarian church all in 1 year, which is a whole other story.
Well,
and even though I really like the Unitarians a lot.
You could have worked them into it.
Right. I did it. I know I haven't figured out exactly how to tell that story yet because I really like them. I don't really want to say anything bad about them. It's just not for me. This is what it's, I just, what I really wanted was for Michael and Mulan and I, Michael's my husband, to all go to a place every week and to use it as a place to get involved doing volunteer work for the community. And anyway, it's sort of a long story, but they were never interested. They're just really not, even though they would go occasionally and really be moved by it occasionally, because there's some incredible services. And the Unitarian Church of Evanston is really atheist. I mean, it's a big, broad group of people, but it's mostly, I would say, atheist. But it's just too much groupiness for me.
Well, atheists vary, and there are some atheists who love to get together and hold hands and sing, not kumbaya, not kumbaya. Right. And there's others who would run screaming out of a place like that, because we're all different in our makeup. Some don't want anything to do with anything that looks even remotely.
That's Michael and Mulan.
Churchy.
I actually do like it. I do like it. But there's, like, if I'm not going with them, and anyway, and I'm moving soon, so that's not a very satisfying answer. But I do like them, and I do like the work they do, and I've had great experiences through them. So that was good. And then I think I'm just going to go visit all those churches I first visited and then see how they've changed. Because there were several churches where there was a very charismatic leader who basically started the church who was about to retire and handing over the reins to their son. There's 3 churches like that. And the son was clearly not as charismatic as the father. And almost to the point where the father seems like in some kind of terrible Shakespearean way to be setting up the son for failure. That I want to visit again and see how that worked out.
Like Franklin Graham is Billy Graham's son.
Right.
And Richard Roberts is Oral Roberts' son.
Jerry Falwell Jr.
Jerry Falwell Jr. They keep this.
He seems to be doing quite well. $900,000 a year salary there at Liberty University.
But it's really, it's a lot to put on a kid to say that you have to be like the dad, I think. Anyway, so that's
or
what
like
I'm
the
do.
mom.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
sometimes it works out.
So what else is going on? You were looking at making a movie.
I was, but I haven't gotten it financed. And actually, I got a cast, I have a producer, but then we didn't get the money. So we're thinking maybe in a year or 2. But now I feel like I just want to concentrate on
I got $100 here if you want to.
No,
I could contribute.
I just need $1.5 million.
Just $1.5 million? Well,
yeah.
I'll start it.
But in the meantime, I feel like I want to just do this comedy show and see if I'm better at doing that right now.
Well, what surprised me when you told me you were working on a movie is that it was a drama.
Yeah.
Now, I shouldn't be surprised, but,
I know. I think people expect me to be funny all the time, but I'm really not. I can come up with funny material on stage, but anyway, this thing that I wrote is really just a drama.
But you also wrote the book, if it's one thing, it's your mother.
If it's one thing,
If it's not one
if
thing.
it's not one thing, it's your mother.
Sorry,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Which is based on a pillow or something.
Yes,
that
my
your
mom
mother
gave me this
you.
pillow, and I thought it was terrible. But then when I had a daughter, I suddenly thought it was funny. And then I gave it to her, and then she comes to me with the pillow and says, "I don't want this pillow anymore." Yeah, I did do that. I wrote that, and yeah, I'm excited.
Well, that was a mixture of funny and real life drama tidbits.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was very, very funny.
Okay, but at one of our conventions, you gave us a little teaser of some of your church visits, the Scientology, and and it was pretty hilarious and pretty weird. I mean, in a comedic way. So I was always looking forward to seeing what you came up with.
I never really developed it that much. Although I have all my notes from everywhere I went.
Do you need some gospel music for the?
Maybe
I can play you some.
I feel like though. It really does feel like church attendance is going down, though. Don't you feel that? I mean, you guys, of course, must see that.
I think most people are unchurched. I mean, even 30 or 40 years ago, most people weren't going to church. But still, yes, it's really fallen.
Right. Like, I go into these churches, and there's not that many. I mean, there's a few that have really charismatic leaders that have a lot.
Well, they need more comedy, don't you think? The pastor should get up and tell more jokes.
Right.
So I want to know, what do you think about Hollywood? I mean, you're going back to LA.
Well, this is the thing about Hollywood that is, I'm just already bracing myself for moving back. They're not religious, but they're really into New Age stuff. I mean, like everything is that kind of the power of attraction, the kind of The Secret, book where it's very, they're just as superstitious as religious people are. It's just that it's not in a traditional religious way.
But so they might be, what you're saying is they might not be religious, but they're not really rational.
Right, right.
But they're not, I mean,
but this is the thing that drives me crazy about it, is they feel superior to religious people. Like they can see through that kind of mumbo jumbo, but they can't see through like the astrological signs being mumbo jumbo, or, that if you think positive thoughts, money's going to start coming to you, or all those kinds of things.
We'll be back with more Freethought Matters after this.
My name is Andrew Seidel, and I'm an out-of-the-closet atheist. I'm an atheist because faith is not a virtue, because willingness to believe anything without evidence and to stand by that belief remains humanity's greatest liability. I'm an atheist because religion infects our deepest nature, asking us to love an imaginary tyrant more than we love our family, our children. I'm an atheist because the universe is 13.7 billion years old, contains billions of galaxies that can contain trillions of stars, and every atom in my body was forged in the heart of a star that exploded, and that's far more amazing than a burning bush. I'm an atheist for the same reason that you're an atheist about Allah and Osiris and Thor. And I'm an atheist because I accept personal responsibility for my mistakes, because nobody sacrificed their life for my sins. I'm an atheist because if I could, I would stop the execution of an innocent person 2,000 years ago. Would you?
So what kind of reception do you get from your fellow and sister, comedians and thespians and people that you've worked with over the years? Well, I have to say,
amongst the comedians, we're mostly, most of the ones I know are atheists and outspoken about it. So that's actually, comedians, I would say, are a different group. In general, the Hollywood actor types is somebody who's more superstitious, I think.
With some notable exceptions, obviously.
Yes, yeah. Not everyone.
But I meant you're not going to get shunned or treated like because they're not Orthodox Christians.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
No, not in Hollywood.
I mean, this is probably not a very fair question, but coming out as an atheist and being so identified with and letting go of God and being so kind to the various Freethought groups like FFRF, do you think
my favorite one, by the way, even though I like them all.
Well, thank you. Do you think that has hurt your...
We have the best music. don't you think?
I
I think
that
it's
could be
hurt my
used-
speaking. I think it has hurt me because when I, except that it hasn't hurt me because I
don't
don't
mind,
care. I
but-
don't mind. But I think you could argue, because I used to do a lot of speaking engagements for cancer organizations. And I don't think they liked that I was saying that I was an atheist, because there's a lot of God talk in that, you know, not in the medical side of it, but in the conventions and the way that they pitch it to people. There's a lot of it. And recently I have a good friend in Spokane who's a Catholic, or who was raised Catholic like me, who was diagnosed with cancer. And there's this 8-person group that we email about keeping people up to date on her cancer, her fight with cancer. And it is filled with, you know, I'm praying for you. And when people say I'm praying for you, I just always say I'm thinking about you. You know, like, because I feel like that's what they really mean. They just don't know how to say it. Or maybe that is what they mean. But I just always say I'm thinking of you. But now it's really gotten crazy, where people are writing saying that it's all kind of blame the victim who's sick. You know, because it's like, well, because this is actually a healthcare worker who got sick. And she was saying, I talked to a medical intuitive, that's another code word for that stuff.
Medical intuitive,
who said that when you're a healthcare worker, you have a shield. God gives you a shield to keep other people's diseases from affecting your body. But my shield got broken down because I went to Mexico and had some tainted water.
Oh,
you know,
my.
like, and I really got depressed, you guys. Like, I didn't know how to respond. I didn't.
You mean this was the person who was sick?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Well,
it's like,
people look for reasons why things happen.
right. And I want to, you know, like I was going to actually send some articles, and I just decided to do nothing.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Because I really, like, what would you do? What do you think?
Well, you know, if you think about it, cancer does look like it was intelligently designed. Look how it replicates and look how it survives within its host. So shouldn't they be thanking God for the beauty of cancer? Maybe that wasn't very funny, but
I'm not going to say that.
no, of course not.
Well, what can you do when somebody is very ill? I mean, you have to bite your tongue sometimes. But
Yeah, I think especially in this group, there's really nothing I can do. I don't think, it's already been difficult for them to accept me as a non-believer. I thought it was okay, but now they're getting older and people are running into trouble, and they're really using religion. I can see how it works. I can see how it makes, in the short term, makes them feel better. Like, it's obvious.
It's not like you're going to take that away from them.
Right,
you don't want to
exactly.
argue religion.
Right, exactly.
But I had the opposite experience where a friend's daughter had a terrible struggle. You know, started getting cancer at 16, died at 19. And what they were dealing with was all these people who didn't realize they were atheists, and it was constant religion. And they wanted me to post things like, you know, secular things, you know, like just, I'm thinking of you, or because it was all religion.
And they didn't want to do it themselves.
The other way around.
Oh, interesting.
It's really hurtful because there's an awful lot of implications that I'm praying for you, therefore God is going to, should be protecting you, but, you know, God must want your child to die, you know, that kind of thing. Well, if you carry it through in its logical conclusions. If they die, then what does that mean? So anyway, it's really hard
I think
to know
if they think that God's calling them home, because I just watched this whole class on the Great Courses by Robert Sapolsky, who's also, isn't he also a recipient of the...
Emperor has no
I
clothes
love
like
him
you.
so much.
Well, we're going to have him on our show
radio show.
pretty
you
soon
are?
here. So.
You are? Oh my God, I'm such a fan of his. I'm like a fangirl of his. But anyway, in his course, he talks about, it does actually calm people down to believe that God's like either, it does in the short term. And then when things happen that don't comport to that, it's very stressful. But I think that's interesting. I mean, you just have to acknowledge it. It can calm someone down because it makes them think there's some order to the universe.
So it looks like we have about 4 minutes.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, you know, in Letting Go of God, you and Jill Sobule, she did that beautiful song for you, Letting Go of God.
Oh,
which
yes,
is really
that's right.
And you and she did a show. Are you still working with her?
Yeah, actually, we're doing a show. Well, we're not really, because I haven't been performing that much, but now I'm thinking of getting back into it. But at the end of August, we're doing a show, which is actually just for a friend of hers in August. So we'll get together then. But we might, I feel like once Mulan, my daughter, goes off to college, then I'll be open to going out and doing things on the
Doing more
road
of
again.
those.
Yeah.
Well, you used to do a thing in, was it You and She in Chicago or in
Yeah.
Evanston? In that
Right.
theater there.
That space. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good blend, a good mix of the two of you.
So you were interviewed by Chris Johnson, who put
Oh, yes.
together a book about
Right,
100
A Better
atheists
Life.
and
Yes.
joy, and it was really very poignant. The clip of you talking about life and death.
Oh, really?
Do you
Oh.
remember that?
Not believing in God was such a sea change of worldview that it changed my life fundamentally and forever.
But you were talking about something that Dan has often said, that that free thought thinkers are almost like wildflowers. That
Yeah.
they come to
right.
their free thought conclusions on their own. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you did that. You had this huge struggle. So,
Right. Well, I think the thing I was saying is that I think of people like wildflowers, like we're here and we're gone. And if you think of life being that precious, to me, that's a really enlightening thought. Like the idea that there's a God really dulls that sense, that visceral sense that you are just a wildflower that's flowering right now and it's going to be gone tomorrow, in a way that makes you, for me, appreciate every moment so much more deeply.
And next year it'll be a different bunch of wildflowers.
Yeah,
out there.
exactly.
Like 100 years ago, the wildflowers.
Yes.
It's the same forest and the same garden, but the flowers are different. each
Right.
time.
So
I
anyway,
wanted to include us.
I should write a song about that.
I know. Oh, you guys. I feel like you're at my house. I love having you here. Thanks so much for
Well,
coming.
very good. So where's the coffee?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
well, we're just about out of time. It was lovely having you come and visit.
Have you told
Freethought
people
Hall.
how great Freethought Hall is? It's
No,
so
not on the
beautiful.
show.
Well, this is our studio in Freethought Hall. We've
I
been working
love
on
it.
it for a long time. So
And I love the building. And you guys do such important work. Really, you guys are fighting the right good fight.
it's
So
the
thankful for
big
people like
fight.
you guys. Yeah, and right now, a bigger than ever fight.
And everything you've done with your celebrity to call
Wow.
attention to it, which is really remarkable.
That's a little bit, but you guys are like the day in, day out, the right stuff. So thank you.
Well,
On
we're-
behalf of the world, I just want to thank you guys.
well, thank you, Julia.
Thank you very much.